Think about this for a moment. We live in a culture obsessed with words. I love you. I miss you. I need you. We're trained to believe that unless someone says these things, their love is somehow incomplete, maybe even counterfeit. But here's the shocker when it comes to avoidance. The very thing you crave to hear, the thing you're desperate for, is often the very thing they'll never say. Why? Because for them, words feel cheap. They feel like a trap. They feel like a contract they don't know how to uphold. So instead of announcing love with their mouth, they embody it with their behavior. Now here's where most people get it wrong. They chase words. They pressure for validation. They ask, why won't you just say it? And in doing so, they miss the truth that's right in front of them. Because the avoidance love doesn't live in the obvious places. It lives in the quiet moments, the uncelebrated gestures, the hidden consistency. And if you don't learn how to see that, you'll walk away from something real thinking it was never there. You want an example? Let's get practical. An avoidant partner may never stand in front of a room, put their hand on your chest, and declare, "You're the love of my life." That's not their style. But notice this, they'll remember how you like your coffee without you asking. They'll fix that door hinge you mentioned offhand a month ago. They'll send you an article at midnight because it reminded them of your dream. These are not random actions. These are coded messages. Their version of, "I love you," isn't broadcasted, it's embedded in daily life. And let's go even deeper. Psychologically, avoidants are terrified of vulnerability. Saying, "I love you," makes them feel naked, exposed, trapped in a role they can't control. But action that they can manage. Action doesn't expose them. Action empowers them. They can move silently, without fanfare, without the risk of being misinterpreted or held hostage by words. That's why when you look for their love, you have to train your eyes differently. You can't measure them by the same standard you'd measure an anxious partner who lives for verbal affirmation. You have to listen not with your ears, but with your eyes. And this is where so many relationships collapse. People demand a specific type of love language, and when they don't receive it, they assume love is absent. But here's the truth, love is not a one-size-fits-all performance. It's filtered through personality, history, and trauma. And avoidance love is filtered through caution and fear, yes, but also through a deep desire to give without being caged. So when they show up in actions, it's not because they can't love. It's because that's the only way they know how to survive loving. Now let me hit you with something that might sting. If you need constant verbal reassurance, if you measure love only in declarations, you will never be able to hold the love of an avoidant, because you'll always misinterpret silence as neglect, restraint as rejection, and subtlety as indifference. And that's not the truth. The truth is they are showing you love in ways that cost them less emotionally, but mean just as much, if not more. Think about this. Who do you trust more? The person who tells you, "I love you forever," and disappears when things get hard? Or the one who may never say the words, but shows up every time when you need them most? Love without reliability is theater. Love with action is reality. And the avoidant, for all their complications, often chooses reality over performance. Philosophically, that should make us pause. Because maybe the deepest kind of love isn't what's spoken, but what's lived. Maybe "I love you" means less when it's declared loudly than when it's quietly proven in daily choices. Maybe we've been conditioned to chase emotional fireworks when the real miracle is in the steady flame that never goes out. And I'll tell you this, when an avoidant remembers the little details, when they quietly anticipate your needs, when they keep showing up despite their natural instinct to pull away, that is monumental. That is their Everest. That is their loudest "I love you," even if you never hear it with your ears. So if you want to know whether an avoidant loves you, stop listening for words. Start watching for patterns. Start noticing the invisible, because their love is not in the speeches, it's in the silent, invisible threads they weave into your life. And here's the final truth I want you to walk away with. Love doesn't need a microphone. It needs consistency. And when an avoidant shows you love through action, even if they never announce it, they're speaking the language of commitment in the only way they know how. Their love is not loud, but it is real. And if you can learn to see it, you'll realize you were never unloved. You were just listening in the wrong place. One of the most misunderstood truths about avoidance is this: the very thing you think is distance, the very thing you interpret as indifference, is often their way of saying, I love you. See, avoidants don't equate closeness with security. For them, too much closeness feels like suffocation. And yet, when they love, they give you something far rarer, something many partners completely overlook. They give you freedom. Now think about how counterintuitive that is. Most people believe that love means being glued to each other, always together, always in contact, constantly validating one another. But for the avoidant, love is the opposite. They're not trying to bind you. They're trying to release you. When they step back and let you breathe, they're not rejecting you. They're communicating, I trust you. I respect you. I don't need to own you to keep you. But here's where it gets complicated. If you're wired anxiously, if you crave reassurance, that freedom doesn't feel like love. It feels like abandonment. You start telling yourself stories. Why aren't they calling? Why don't they check in every hour? Why don't they want to spend every weekend with me? And you miss the truth staring you in the face. Their love is in the very absence of control. Psychologically, this makes perfect sense. Avoidants often come from environments where closeness was either unsafe, inconsistent, or smothering. So they learned early on that love doesn't survive under pressure. It survives with space. So when they love you, they resist the urge to control. They don't tie you down with endless check-ins. They don't put you on a leash. Instead, they allow you the dignity of freedom. That's not neglect. That's their highest form of trust. And think about this: real love, at its core, is not about possession. It's not about ownership. It's about choice. If you only feel secure when someone is in constant contact with you, are you really loved? Or are you just managed? An avoidant flips that paradigm. They say, I love you enough to let you go live your life. I love you enough to give you room to choose me freely, not because I trapped you in constant obligation. That's radical love. It's terrifying if you're not used to it, but it's also profoundly liberating. Let's take an example. An anxious partner says, call me when you get there. Text me every night before bed. Tell me you miss me when I'm gone. Their love is verbal, constant, tethered. The avoidant partner, they won't say much. They'll give you a wave, a smile, and then they'll let you go. And while you're gone, they won't demand a minute-by-minute update. To them, that's not a lack of care. It's a sign of respect. It's their way of saying, I believe in you enough to let you live without monitoring you. Now I know some of you are thinking, but isn't that just detachment? Isn't that cold? No. Detachment says, I don't care what you do. Avoidant love says, I care enough not to chain you. Huge difference. And if you don't learn to tell the difference, you'll misinterpret love as neglect and destroy something meaningful because it didn't match your expectation of how love should look. Philosophically, this forces us to confront our own immaturity about love. We've been conditioned by movies, songs, and cultural myths that love means constant intensity, endless communication, grand declarations. But let's be honest, those fireworks rarely last. The strongest loves are not the ones that consume. They're the ones that respect individuality, freedom, and choice. And in that sense, avoidance, though they may frustrate you, actually model a higher level of than we give them credit for. Because here's the truth. When someone gives you freedom, they're showing you they're not insecure in their bond. They're not terrified that distance means disconnection. They know that love is proven not in constant grip, but in consistent return. So when an avoidant lets you go and you come back, that cycle becomes the most profound statement of love there is. I give you space. You choose me anyway. That's real connection. And I want you to think about how powerful that is. Would you rather be with someone who keeps you in a cage so you never leave, or someone who leaves the door wide open and knows you'll return because you want to, not because you have to? Avoidants, in their own way, are telling you, I don't need to own you to keep you. I just need to trust you to choose me. So the next time you feel frustrated that your avoidant partner isn't constantly hovering, remember this: that space they give you is not emptiness, it's trust. That freedom is not rejection, it's love expressed in its most unconventional form. When we think about love, we're conditioned to imagine grand declarations. Roses, candlelit dinners, endless I love yous, whispered into the night. And while those moments have their place, they are not the foundation of lasting love. For avoidance, especially, the foundation is something entirely different. It's reliability. It's showing up. It's action that speaks louder than 1,000 words ever could. Now, here's what most people don't understand. Avoidants are deeply suspicious of words. To them, words can be manipulative, empty, even dangerous. Why? Because they've seen words used as promises that never materialized. They've experienced declarations of love followed by betrayal. So they adapt. They learn to value action, not speech. For them, real love isn't proven in how beautifully you can say it. It's proven in whether you keep showing up when life gets messy. And this is where they shock people. Because an avoidant won't flood you with compliments. They won't drown you in verbal affection. But when the car breaks down at midnight, they're the one who comes to pick you up. When you're sick, they're quietly restocking the fridge. When life throws you into chaos, they're the calm hand helping you stabilize. That's their I love you. It's not written in poetry, it's written in presence. Psychologically, this makes sense. Avoidants need to feel safe in how they express themselves, and words often feel unsafe. Words can be twisted. Words can be used against you. But action is undeniable. You can't fake showing up at the hospital. You can't fake paying the bill when things fall apart. You can't fake keeping your word when it costs you something. That's why avoidants rely on reliability. It's their safe, controlled, but deeply meaningful way of communicating love. And here's the paradox. Most partners miss this. They dismiss the avoidance reliability as basic. They say things like, well, of course he's supposed to do that. That's nothing special. But pause for a moment. How many people do you know who actually follow through consistently? How many say they'll be there but aren't? How many promise but disappear? In today's world, reliability is not basic. It's rare. And when an avoidant gives you that, it's not to be overlooked. Let me paint this more vividly. Imagine two scenarios. Partner A tells you every day, you're my everything. I can't live without you. But when you hit a crisis, when you're truly in need, they vanish. Partner B doesn't shower you with verbal romance, but when the crisis hits, they're unshakable. Who really loves you more? Who's investing in your well-being? The truth is clear. Love is not proven in declarations. It's proven in sacrifice, in consistency, in reliability. And this is the avoidance hidden strength. Philosophically, this challenges the cultural obsession with verbal affirmation. We've been trained to idolize words. But think about it. What is more valuable? Someone who tells you they'll build a house for you, or someone who quietly shows up every weekend and lays the bricks? The avoidant is a bricklayer. They don't romanticize the process. They just build. And one day, you look up and realize they've constructed a structure around you that's stronger than any poem could ever describe. But here's the catch. If you're too focused on waiting for the words, you'll never recognize the building. You'll miss the very thing you long for because it doesn't come packaged the way you expected. And that's the tragedy in so many avoidant relationships. The love was there. It was solid. It was consistent. But it was invisible to the person demanding a verbal receipt. And let's be real, reliability is not glamorous. It's not flashy. It doesn't grab attention like a surprise proposal or a public declaration. But what it does is far more important. It makes you feel safe. And at the end of the day, isn't that what love is supposed to do? It's supposed to anchor you, ground you, give you stability in a chaotic world. That's the gift the avoidant offers, even when they can't say the words you're craving. So I'll say this, don't underestimate the avoidant who doesn't whisper, "I love you," every night. Pay attention to whether they show up when it matters, because reliability is not just another form of love. It's the highest form. It's love in action. It's love proven over time. And while words can evaporate, actions stay. Here's the reflection I want to leave you with. Would you rather have love that sounds good or love that holds you up when everything falls apart? Because one disappears with silence, the other keeps showing up. And in the end, the avoidance reliability is the loudest "I love you" you'll ever receive. It just doesn't come wrapped in words. Here's the paradox of avoidant love. It doesn't scream. It doesn't dazzle you with fireworks. It whispers. It hides itself in the tiniest, most ordinary things. So ordinary that if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it completely. Avoidants don't make love announcements. They build love rituals. And if you don't know how to see them, you'll mistake consistency for nothingness. And you'll miss the quiet heartbeat of their devotion. Think about it. An avoidant may never sit you down and say, "You mean the world to me." That kind of emotional exposure terrifies them. But what they will do is make sure your coffee is just the way you like it. 2 sugars, no cream, without you ever asking. They'll notice that you get cold at night and throw an extra blanket over you while you sleep. They'll hear you mention once that you've been wanting to try a certain restaurant, and weeks later, without fanfare, they'll take you there. To the untrained eye, these things look trivial. But they're not. These small, consistent rituals are the avoidance love letters, just written in silence instead of words. Psychologically, this makes perfect sense. Avoidants are wired to fear vulnerability in direct expression, so they find safety in indirect channels. They don't expose themselves with sweeping declarations. They expose themselves in gestures so subtle, they can easily be disguised as routine. And that's the brilliance of it. These rituals allow them to love without feeling like they're betraying their independence. It's love woven into daily life instead of performed on a stage. And here's the fascinating thing, those daily rituals are often far more powerful than a dramatic "I love you." Because words, as beautiful as they sound, are fleeting. You say them once and they're gone. But a ritual repeats. It builds. It forms a rhythm in your life that tells you over and over again, "I see you, I care for you, I'm paying attention." That's not empty love. That's embedded love. That's love you live inside of every single day. Let's be honest. How many people declare love, but fail to notice the small details? How many tell you you're everything to them, but never actually listen to you? Avoidants flip that script. They may not tell you much, but they are watching. They are paying attention to details most people would ignore. And in that attention lies their affection. When an avoidant remembers the brand of tea you like, when they quietly adjust the thermostat because they know you get uncomfortable, when they buy you the snack you casually mentioned once, that's their "I love you." It may not sound like much, but it is everything. Philosophically, this challenges our obsession with grand gestures. We've been conditioned by Hollywood to think love must be loud, public, spectacular. But think deeper. What sustains love isn't the occasional firework, it's the daily fire. It's the small, repeated acts that build trust, comfort, and familiarity. In that sense, the avoidant is not withholding love, they're offering it in the most sustainable form, the ritual of daily care. And yet, here's the danger: if you're not tuned into this, you'll miss it. You'll look at the avoidant and think, they never say it, they never show it, they don't care. But that's blindness, because you were looking for the grand statement while the truth was sitting right in your morning coffee. You were demanding fireworks while they were keeping the flame alive every single day. That's why so many people walk away from avoidance thinking they were unloved, when in reality, they were loved deeply, just in a language they didn't know how to read. I'll give you an image to hold onto. Imagine a book written in invisible ink. If you don't know the trick, you'll think the pages are blank. But under the right light, the words are revealed. That's avoidant love. It's not absent. It's invisible until you learn how to see it. And once you do, you realize the pages were full the entire time. So the challenge is this: can you slow down enough to notice the rituals? Can you value the daily gestures as much as the dramatic declarations? Can you understand that a cup of coffee made with thought, a quiet act of remembering, a consistent rhythm of care, these are not small things. They are the very structure of love. And here's the truth I want to leave you with: love that lives in rituals may not shout, but it never fades. It weaves itself into your life so deeply that it becomes impossible to separate where the action ends and the affection begins. Here's a truth most people never realize until it's too late. For an avoidant, simply staying is the loudest declaration of love they'll ever make. You might not hear the words. You might not see the dramatic displays. But if they are still there, still choosing you, still showing up despite their instinct to run, that's not casual. That's monumental. Because let's be honest, avoidants are wired for escape. Their nervous system is tuned to detect closeness as danger. When intimacy rises, their first reflex is retreat. They crave connection, yes, but the moment it feels too close, too vulnerable, too exposed, they pull back. So when you find an avoidant who doesn't leave, who doesn't disappear at the first sign of intensity, who stays engaged even when their whole being is screaming to run, that's not weakness. That's strength. That's their version of standing on a mountaintop and yelling, "I love you." And most people miss this because they're looking for the wrong proof. They want the avoidant to say, "I'll never leave you." But for an avoidant, those words feel impossible. They don't trust themselves to make that promise, so they won't say it. Instead, they live it. They stay. They return after distance. They remain connected, quietly, steadily, without announcement. That's the promise in action, not in words. Think about the weight of that. An avoidant's natural state is distance. Their comfort zone is space. So if they are consistently present in your life, texting back, showing up at family events, making plans with you, even just being available, that's not small. That's them overriding their very wiring to keep you in their world. That's not casual affection. That's radical commitment expressed in the only way they can manage. Psychologically, this makes sense. Avoidants equate closeness with loss of autonomy. Their biggest fear is being swallowed whole by someone else's needs. So their presence is not just presence. It's a conscious sacrifice. It's them saying, even though my instinct is to run, you matter enough for me to resist that instinct. That's love at war with fear. And when love wins, even quietly, that victory is profound. But here's the danger. If you don't recognize this, you'll minimize it. You'll complain, they don't tell me enough. They don't reassure me. They don't say the things I want to hear. And in doing so, you'll miss the miracle that they're still there. You'll devalue the strongest message they've already given you, their continued presence. And sometimes, when you push too hard for words, you drive them into the very retreat you feared, not because they didn't love you, but because they felt unseen in the way they expressed it. Let me put this another way. Imagine you're standing with someone in a burning building. The fire is raging, and their natural instinct is to run. But instead, they stay by your side. They don't make a speech about bravery. They don't shout, "I'll never leave you." They simply stay. Which matters more, the words they didn't say, or the action they just took? The avoidance love is like that. Their staying is their courage. Their presence is their proof. Philosophically, this calls us to rethink love itself. We're so conditioned to equate love with verbal reassurance that we overlook the deeper truth. Love is not what someone promises. It's what they choose, day after day. Words can be broken, but promises can be abandoned. But presence is undeniable. If someone keeps showing up despite fear, despite instinct, despite discomfort, that's the purest kind of love there is. And make no mistake, the avoidance presence is never casual. It costs them something. Every day they choose closeness over escape. They are battling themselves. And if they keep showing up for you, that means you matter more than their fear. That means love is winning inside of them. That means the bond is real, even if it's quiet. So here's the shift you need to make. Stop asking whether they've said it, and start asking whether they've shown it by staying. Stop measuring love by decibels and start measuring it by endurance. Because the avoidance love won't be sung. It will be lived in silence. And if you can see that, you'll realize you are not unloved. You are deeply, profoundly chosen. Here's the thought I want to leave you with. The presence of an avoidant in your life is not random. It's a declaration. They don't stay because they have to. They stay because despite everything in them that wants to run, they've decided you're worth it. And sometimes the quiet decision to remain is the loudest, "I love you." Of all, here's a hard truth most people miss. Commitment doesn't always sound like, "I love you." It doesn't always look like romance painted across the sky. With avoidance, commitment is rarely spoken. But if you look closely, you'll see it being built piece by piece, quietly, almost invisibly. They won't shout it from the rooftops, but they'll show you with their life choices. They won't say, "You're my forever," but they'll start designing a life that has you in it. And this is where so many people get confused, because we've been conditioned to equate commitment with words and ceremonies. We want the public declarations, the constant reassurance, the daily affirmations. But avoidants aren't wired that way. For them, words feel unsafe, vulnerable, binding. Yet what they do instead is even more powerful. They commit with action. They don't talk about the future. They plan for it. They don't declare love endlessly. They invest in a structure where you're already woven in. Think about it. An avoidant may not say, "I'll take care of you," but they'll start making financial decisions that include you. They may never say, "You're the one," but they'll introduce you to their inner circle, the people they rarely let anyone close to. They might not talk about a long-term vision, but suddenly you're part of their routines, their rituals, their stability. That's not casual. That's commitment in the most profound sense. They're letting you into their carefully guarded world. Psychologically, this is huge. Avoidants fear being trapped. They fear losing themselves in a relationship. So when they begin to plan with you, when they start aligning their life with yours, that's them overcoming their deepest fear. That's them saying, without words, "I'm willing to risk my independence because you matter more than my comfort." You don't get a louder statement of love than that. It's just not spoken in the language you expect. But here's the danger. If you're fixated only on words, you'll miss the weight of this. You'll say, "They never tell me how they feel. They never open up. They never say they love me. Meanwhile, they're structuring a life around you. They're giving you access to their time, their space, their resources, the very things avoidants guard most fiercely. And because it doesn't look like the romantic scripts you grew up with, you'll dismiss it. And if you dismiss it long enough, they'll retreat, believing their way of loving wasn't seen, wasn't valued, wasn't enough. Let's be real. Words are easy. They take a second to say. But structuring your life around someone, that's costly. That takes sacrifice. That takes consistency. Avoidance might not give you the verbal reassurance you crave, but they'll give you something far more enduring, a pattern of choices that prove you're already central in their life. They're not always verbal architects, but they're builders. Quietly, steadily, they build commitment not with promises, but with actions. Philosophically, this is profound. Because maybe love was never meant to be measured in what people say. It was always meant to be measured in what people build. Words are temporary. Life choices are permanent. Words can be broken, but structures endure. And when an avoidant begins making you part of their structure, that's commitment at its core. That's them handing you the keys to their most private world, saying, I don't say it, but you're already part of me. Picture it like this. Some people write love in ink, bold and loud, where everyone can see it. But ink fades, ink smudges. The avoidant, they carve it in stone, slowly, carefully, quietly. But once it's carved, it doesn't go away. That's the nature of their commitment. It may not look poetic. It may not sound romantic, but it is solid. It is lasting. It is real. So here's the shift you need to make. Stop asking if they've said the words and start asking whether they've built the structure. Stop looking for verbal proof and start looking for behavioral investment. Because with avoidance, commitment isn't spoken. It's lived. And let me leave you with this final reflection. Commitment that hides in words can fail. But commitment that's carved into actions, into daily life, into the structure of who they are, that's unshakable. Avoidance may never say, I love you, the way you want to hear it, but when you see how they build around you, you'll realize they've been saying it all along, just in the only way they know how.